Yeah, like I mean,
and it was only like an
realize
hour or 2 hours worth of practices each day.
right. Right. I realize like it sounds like I'm splitting hairs, and I'm just saying the idea of all right, helmet.
It's more of a mental thing for the kids.
Yeah. Like they're wearing t-shirts and and shorts and helmets, but when you start hitting and and that defensive line that Ohio State has assembled, if Isaiah Prince is struggling against that defensive line, that could be very foreboding, but it's exciting.
To be going against that defensive line every day in practice, is going to be something just based on the simple fact of when you go and play other teams, you're not going to be having that kind of talent across from you.
Right. That's a great benchmark. It's a great benchmark. But we'll see. The fact that Urban Meyer at Big Ten Media Days said how the right guard position is open, and then he rattled off, like 6 or 7 guys. And, there's a lot of speculation as to who, like some people think it might be Malcolm Pridgeon, it might be Matt Burrell. I mean, I could keep going on and on. Supposedly, other Big Ten media people that were sitting around kind of grumbled. They were basically saying, every one of those players that isn't starting for Ohio State, but Ohio State has them on the roster, every one of those guys could start at just about every other Big Ten institution, every one of them. And Ohio State has that luxury of depth, that they have the caliber of players that they can just plug in at right guard. Now, getting that cohesiveness and chemistry is crucial, but that's where, getting back to where we were just talking about, getting that into camp, seeing how people do with during the hitting and things like that. I think that's where we'll come to an idea as to who's going to win that starting right guard spot.
Yeah. Since we're on camp, we're like we said, it's just 2 days of practice so far, basically, for the guys. They're not even doing much as far as the film room or anything. I believe Urban said on the Big Ten Media Days that he's just basically giving the players an iPad, and they're coming in for an hour or two, and they're off. They're out. Because he doesn't want them, because of the time frame, not allowing 2-a-days means that they had to schedule more practices according to the NCAA, which, if you notice that, I think just about every coach wasn't happy with that. They're happy. Right. They're happy with the fact that there's no 2-a-days for the players. They all seem to be really, all on the same page as far as, player safety. We are all for the simple fact of not having 2-a-days anymore. It's going to cut down on the injuries and, just working the kids out so much. But now you're taking a 4-week training camp and you're extending another week and a half.
Yes.
So now you're going to have that. You have to play the game of, like what they're doing as far as their scheduling. You have to play that game in order to figure out the balance to not get that mental fatigue. So by week 5, when you're the last week before the season opens up, especially since Ohio State and Indiana, or even Minnesota, if you're just talking about Big Ten teams,
true,
they're playing that Thursday before Labor Day weekend. So,
right.
You're that 5th week, you're going to be like, will the season start already?
Yeah. I think what Urban Meyer did say that he worked with Mickey Marotti in charting out the schedule, and I think he's being extremely cautious. He wants to cut down, like you said, not only on the possibility of injury, but just the mental fatigue of, you want the players not only well rested, but in the right frame of mind for when the games actually start, that they're not burnt out. So I think Urban Meyer is going to handle it tremendously well. But yeah, it's exciting that, Ohio State, with the new coaching staff, we just talked about the right guard. We talked about I know that you and Tony on Across the Field, talking about, some of the other positions that are open. It's exciting. I think, going forward as we continue with our podcast, getting practice updates and things like that, finding out which players are emerging, which players are, stepping up, if not necessarily as starters, but definitely as players who can contribute. You and I both know that Ohio State has signed, some tremendously talented freshman classes, not just this year, but in the previous years. So those guys are very eager and anxious to show what they can do. So it's going to be exciting to see and hear about in the coming weeks as August 31st gets ever and ever closer.
You know what else is right around the corner? Those videos that Ohio State releases from training camp. Those are like the best.
Yeah.
I mean, you get little snippets of, who's standing out and who's making a name for themselves, because those kids they're giving it their all. And in order to be able to play, you have to give it your all, because there's somebody, if you're one of the starters, it doesn't matter who you are, you got somebody that's trying to take your spot.
Not just the videos, but the revelations of the removal of the black stripes.
Oh, yes.
On the freshmen. Love that.
Yes. Which,
it just amps up the anticipation. I can't wait to see, and fill in the blank. It doesn't matter who, but, when you hear, oh, this guy had his black stripe removed, it kind of makes you think, okay, like he must be really something. So, personally, I have a feeling, there's a large number of candidates.
There's still a lot of candidates from 2017s, 2016 that still had their black stripes.
I know.
It's going to be fun. All right. Well, we might as well go ahead and put a bow on this episode. We've discussed a lot. Man, I'll tell you one thing. Everything that I went through last year with the mental problems, just, my own personal stuff, it feels so good to be back in the chair, back in the saddle.
It's great to be back with you.
Back with Chip doing a show. But yeah, I know Joe's going to listen to this show, so I have to, just in honor of our friend Joe Dexter. It was funny because I sent him a message the other day, and on Facebook or like with Google Photos, you get a reminder saying, hey, a year ago you did this, 2 years ago you did this, based on your pictures. Well, it was 2 years ago last week, which, by the way, and I keep forgetting, your birthday and my birthday is one day apart. So I remember I was in Cincinnati after the All-Star break, and the Indians were playing. So we were in Cincinnati for the 3-game series for that weekend. Got to go to the zoo and see Hombre before he was shot. But Joe reached out, and he was, asking me what direction the Minnich, Scarlet and Gray podcast was going to go and everything. And him and I got to talking, and then you and I got to talking about what direction we were going to go, because when the first year that we were doing the show, it wasn't chaotic, but it was just, it was different. And I mean, I think it was good, but everybody was just new and not knowing exactly what was going on. And Joe just was like, you and Chip need to do a show. And he gave me the blueprint, and I just, every day, I'm thankful for his blueprint and his guidance and his help to getting us to where we're.
I agree, and I'm anxious for he and Claire.
Oh, hell no!
Flipping over.
That's the
tires.
That's the name of their show.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
Hell no!
I'm anxious. I'm anxious for them to resume, and
yep. Mm-hmm.
Our good friends at Sons of Schmidt and Cost the Field.
Yeah, I think Brandon and Mike are doing a great job with their show. And
yeah, absolutely.
I have a special place in my heart. I mean, for Joe and Claire, because that was the first podcast I used to listen to the old Buckeye Battle Cry Radio Hour. I mean, I looked at that, and I think that was the standard for, podcasts for Ohio State. And I think what we have for a network or group of, shows and stuff like that, I think we have a great group. I really do.
Yeah, and for our loyal listeners, hey, we're giving you more opportunities to listen to Ohio State-oriented podcasts beyond just the silver bullets.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen to Oh Hail No. You can listen to Sons of Schmidt. You can listen to Across the Field. So you've got your...
Everybody's going to have all their different stuff.
Yeah, hopefully your love of Ohio State football will not go unrequited. How's that?
Exactly. I have basketball and wrestling and lacrosse and maybe baseball one day.
Maybe.
I mean, you look at Ohio State, and I mean, hats off to them. The men's won the Capital Cup, and that's not a small feat. And anybody that doesn't know what the Capital Cup is, that's where you won the most championships. You had the greatest program in all of college sports. You finish in the top of like everything. I mean, you figure national champions for gymnastics, runners up for wrestling, runners up for lacrosse. I mean, there's so much that they did. It just, I got to meet Jim Smith and talk to him for a minute, and I told him that I think what he's done has been phenomenal. I mean, he's had a couple of miscues. Don't get me wrong, everybody does, but what he has built at Ohio State. And it started getting built before him, but what he has done to help take it from level 1 to level 10, to be the elite, it's something that we're going to look back and just be astonished by. I mean, especially when you look at what's happened with Texas and Michigan, with their hires for athletic directors and stuff like that in recent years. So with that being said, my friend, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you at on the Twitter sphere and your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who have not followed me yet on Twitter, it's very simple, at Chip Minnich, Minich. And you'll often find me retweeting a lot of the fine work that we were just talking about, the ozone.net, Hayes and Cannon, all of our colleagues, letting people know when podcasts are being released, when articles are being published, as well as some of my own personal things. And I also write for Athlon Sports, so if you happen to see some articles of those, please let me know what you think. Yeah.
I just want to say to whoever, I know the editors aren't responsible for this, but to whoever put all the Michigan State covers of Athlon football magazine in Ann Arbor, my hat's off to you.
I had nothing to do with it.
Oh, I know. I think that was the greatest thing ever. I mean, granted, it's an accident, but what the perfect, I mean, in Columbus, there would have been a riot, plain and simple. I mean, if you would have had Michigan in Columbus, you would have had a riot. It doesn't seem like there was that much of a riot in Ann Arbor. I mean,
I agree.
It seemed like one store was like, hey, look, accidentally we got the Michigan State covers for our Athlon college football preview. Yeah, there would have been outcry in Columbus. I mean, I put on Twitter, maybe because they don't read facts, and, a lot of Michigan fans don't read facts. So maybe they're not buying the magazines. So I'm sorry for that. I thought that was...
No. Tell them how they can follow you.
You follow me. I changed my Twitter handle, but you follow me at Shannon CFB. I tweet a lot about Indians, Ohio State, making fun of Michigan, because it's a national pastime making fun of Michigan now. You can find my work I have a couple of articles that I've written, but I've still not been able to finish on Ozone and Cannon because everything's just been so chaotic with the Indians and the Michigan games and